Hi, Mark Hamilton here on a lazy Saturday afternoon, wanting to talk to you a little bit about the stimulus bill that's on Capitol Hill and about how you can actually think about the concept of economic stimulus during an economic recession and how you can look at the current bill that is bouncing around up on Capitol Hill and make some decisions. So we're going to call this segment Survival of the Fittest. And we're going to do that because we're going to look at how true economic stimulus actually should be aimed at the strong and not the weak. Because if we don't do that, we're not going to get any stimulus at all. And that's actually why this bill isn't doing so well. So, with that, let's just talk a little bit about economic survival, and let's talk about companies and institutions rather than people, because the analogies and the rules of the road and the rules of the jungle are slightly a little bit different for companies rather than people. You see, folks, it's economic stress and hard times that actually helps you separate the good companies from the bad companies and the winners from the losers. When I talk to my dear honey and Pookiekins Vital Finds, I often use the flip this house type of example. If you were in this business 3 or 4 years ago, anybody could make money with half their brain tied behind their back. Times were good, markets were strong, you could probably pick any old house out of the inventory, do some cosmetic work, and turn it around, and in 6 months you would probably make some money on it, whether you were that good of a house picker or not. And we all kind of know this because, you know, a lot of us have been in that type of housing environment. But try to do that now, and you can get your head handed to you. And many people actually have. And that's because when times are tough, you got to be really, really, really good in order to make money or get ahead or get a profit or do what you need to do. If you're not so good, it's going to become painfully obvious. And you're basically going to end up failing, going out of business, ending up on economic life support. So when we have hard times like we have now, and the government wants to ride to the rescue with economic stimulus to help get the economy back on track, well, the first thing you realize is that the economy is the private sector doing business, selling goods and services to people, hiring people to be employees to provide those goods and services, etc., etc. So think about it this way. We are now in a situation where it's really clear who the good businesses are and who the good business managements are and who are the bad ones. For example, Circuit City, bad. Best Buy, good. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. Circuit City is going out of business. Best Buy is not. We have an example of good and bad. If you're going to stimulate the economy, folks, you don't want to give money to Circuit City to keep it on life support, because all you're going to do is be putting good money after bad. And oh, by the way, all the best and the brightest people who worked at Circuit City probably need to be let go so they can go work at Best Buy, and a company that was well managed, that had a good business model, that knew what it was doing, could actually get ahead. That's why we have a problem with the stimulus bill that is now there. When you provide economic stimulus, you want to stimulate the best and the brightest, the winners. You want to stimulate the winners to get bigger and take on more risk and expand. You don't want to keep the losers on life support. As I say, That's throwing good money after bad. A company that's on the verge of going bankrupt isn't going to hire anybody. That's why a lot of these TARP payments to a lot of these banks that almost went under and went out of business aren't having a stimulative effect. The banks are clinging to the government money that was given to them by the government just to basically stay alive. If you want to stimulate lending, or you want to stimulate, say, a car company to sell more cars, I'm using a couple examples, go to the winners. We should be helping Toyota and Nissan and Volkswagen and Audi and BMW, the successful transplants in this country, actually sell more cars and expand. I wouldn't take money from Toyota, take it out of Toyota's profits, and hand it to General Motors. Frankly, folks, and I hate to give you the news for you guys living in Michigan and out in Detroit, who, by the way, had your state run into the ground by a Democrat governor, your livelihoods need to go away, basically, if they're tied to the big three automakers, or a lot of it should, because they are the losers. They have screwed up. They are at the bottom. The foreign car makers are doing much better. And if I were doing bailouts, I would be making sure that the foreign car companies that were operating here actually had incentives to hire more people. Because in the end, folks, the American automakers basically have failed. They are bankrupt. They can't sell cars. They can't do much of anything. It would be better to give those foreign car companies money to buy GM, Chrysler, and Ford, take them over, restructure them, get rid of all this bloat that's on their payroll in the form of the UAW workers, and we would have a strong, robust auto industry in this country making cars here. Because basically, you can't put good money after bad. You cannot hand money to failures, okay? We know the companies that are well managed and the companies that aren't well managed, and I'm against, by the way, I'm against spending government money for any of this stuff. I would take a purely hands-off approach and let the Federal Reserve handle our problems from a monetary and financial standpoint, to keep the financial system sound and to make sure there weren't runs on banks. But given that the government does claim it's going to stimulate, it had better make sure it stimulates the winners, the healthy, the well-managed companies to grow bigger and take on risk and hire more people than to basically keep the losers alive and limping along, because they're not going to help anybody. They're just going to be back again asking for more handouts 6 months, a year, or two down the road. So anyway, sorry to give it to you this way, because it's kind of like tough love, and sometimes the truth hurts, folks, but basically our stimulus bill is going to stimulate nobody unless it starts encouraging the winners in this society to take risk. Thank you, and I'm signing off.